On today's episode of PJ and the Beard, we're going to figure out why there are no pickups in this box. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you to consider subscribing to the channel, click on the notification bell. Your interaction with us helps us interact with great people in the industry. And in this case, Porter Pickups, Brian Porter, and Barber Electronics, Dave Barber. We actually got to take a field trip, and the Beard's going to tell you what we did when we hopped in the car and drove about 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, to upload an hour-long video and expect people to watch it on YouTube is probably your first mistake. Unless you are putting somebody in the room with somebody like, I think, David Barber. So Dave would say to us, this is too long, nobody's going to watch it. And he could be right, but I'm putting it out because basically what happened is we took this guitar over to Dave's house. We said, hey, can you help us swap the original DGT pickups for the Porter pickups? And he was like, sure. And then what would probably be like a 15-minute job for him, I swear, if we shut up and he wasn't talking to us, he could have probably done it in like 15 minutes. Took us about an hour and a half to 2 hours to get it done. And he very graciously just was like, okay, here we go. And walked us through everything, told us about all the stuff that was going on, talked about the little trick that PRS is playing with that, with their volume pots and how they tune those in, and just some, there's a lot of stuff happening in there that I didn't expect.
Right.
And like I said, he was very kind. I want you to understand this is a microphone and a camera pointing down at the guitar. There's no special shots, nothing like that. And
with a fan running so that the exhaust from the solder didn't injure any of the participants.
And it's just us. We're basically inviting you into the room to hang out with us while we're talking to Dave. If Dave says something silly like, I don't know, like say he says it's 181 picofarads and it's really 180, please cut the guy some slack. Like I said, we're just hanging out and he's talking to us. This was not an instructional video by any stretch of the imaginations. But I think it is a video that you could glean a lot of information from, and it's cool to watch somebody that's as talented as this stuff as Dave work. So without further ado.
All right, so we are gathered here today to remove this poor DGT's stock pickups and install a set of Porters. Which model are these?
The classic, I think they're on the back. It's on the back. They have the values and the smooth and
the smooth 4-conductor and the classic. So the bridge pickup is an 8.5K, so just slightly hot. The neck is a 7.4K, not really hot. And it was checked by BP, British Petroleum. And dated 3/14, so these are recent. So let's not get to these yet. First thing we have to do is remove the original DGT pickups. So we'll start with our strings. And the pro removal of strings technique. So the screws that are used on these are probably have a bit bigger top on them, bigger head, than the typical things you see on.
Well, they didn't even recess the plates.
Right. And there we are. So what we have here is a braided wire, a braided shield around the pickups, the pickup wires, and the braided shield is not insulated. So a lot of times companies will have either a clear or a black tubing around this shield so that if it lays against any of the other electronics, it doesn't short them out. So it's something you have to be careful with the length that you have in this guitar with these original pickups. I don't know how the Porters will look. I'm going to guess if it's a 4-conductor, it's probably going to have some type of an insulation. So they do look like they wrapped up enough of it, and they look like they kept it away from the rest of the electronics and used a expensive zip tie to make sure that was right. We do have treble bleed caps on the neck and on the bridge pickup, so they both have a treble bleed. We'll measure the pots when we get through this. We probably shouldn't change too many things at once if you want to really hear what things sound like. It's got the typical resistors for what's now called a partial split, or some people can also call it a partial humbucker, because it's, depending on how you look at it, it is. And they're probably the same values that are used in the American DGT. And so we have to use
Get a picture of you diffusing the bomb.
the zip tie removal technique with the high dollar zip tie removal equipment. And let's see what we got.
So
here.
that metal braided cable, if you left it long
The shields.
and you didn't tie it up
Cable.
and it touched here or touched on the back of it, that could short something
Absolutely.
up. Okay, I never thought about that.
So,
But touching each other is not bad.
touching each other is just ground touching ground, which is perfectly
Okay.
fine. So, and they're all grounded somewhere. This one is it's frayed, I'm afraid, but it's attached to the back of this pot, which is the bridge pot. I'm trying to remember which one that was. And this is attached to the back of the neck pot here, the other one. They could have been attached to any two areas. Sometimes people actually will run a bead of solder along them to keep them together. But we're not going to do anything like this because PRS didn't do anything like that. And let's see what these. These are our splits. And so we'll take one pickup out, and that will tell us what the split is without having to do a lot of measuring. We'll make it easy on us. Not that it's going to matter a whole lot, because I'm not sure that I want to reuse the same value resistors for the partial split that PRS used on theirs. I thought the ones on the PRS sounded a little recessed. The stock sound, and so I might increase the value of these resistors a little bit. It'll make the single coil sounds a little bit more full, but I don't think these pickups are designed to sound probably naturally as full as like the bridge pickup. And the bridge pickup on the DGT seems a little naturally full in a good way. This is probably designed to be a little bit fuller than natural, but I wouldn't be surprised if it had a little bit more of a like PAF kind of crack to it. Maybe I'm wrong, but still, I think we should try a little bit bigger value there. And yeah, so these are the wires that go to the selector switch. They're PVC insulated and probably the highest quality known to man. Let's get a soldering iron warmed up here. Okay, so let's start with as carefully as we can, removing a braided wire. I'm using a little bit stronger or a little wider pitch tip than I typically would. The tip of the iron needs to match the work that you're doing. If you have very small pitch, which means just small in general, components that you're working with, you can use a smaller tip. If you're using something with more mass, you need a tip that's bigger. A lot of people try to use the same exact tip the entire time they work, and they get frustrated. They get to something large like a pot, and it's not quite big enough. This is big enough to work on something like a pot or an output jack, but it's also small enough that I can still work on a PC board or more fine electronics. So I can't remember the measurement on that one, or I would tell you guys. I'm going to need my glasses, which are also back there, because I was just pulling that braided stuff off, and I was like, if I fling solder and it hits me in the eye, it's going to be no party. So I can tell you right now that we've got something to look at about this bridge position potentiometer. PRS is playing a trick on the bridge position. The same kind of trick that they play on the John Mayer Silver Skies. And that trick, I'm going to show you in a second. To get the exact value of the pot they want, so pots are 20% tolerance parts. So if you, just for sake of making it easy to understand, if you have a 100K pot, 20% tolerance means that when you pull it brand new out of the package, it can be anywhere from 80K to 120K. So you've got a 40K variance that it could be, but the center point of that is 100K, which is what its stated value is, 20% up and 20% down. So what PRS does is they use pots that are a higher value than they actually need. And then they measure the pot, and then they pick an appropriate resistor to bring the pot down by putting it in parallel with the pot. Okay, we'll be following parallel resistance here. So they can get the value that we want. We'll measure that in a second to know what we're dealing with.
So they 500Ks pots?
I would think that they're higher than 500K. Either that or what David Grissom likes is something lower than 500K. We're going to find out in just a moment here. So it's a Fluke 115. It's It's just the meter I happen to have. It's not necessarily one that's paying me to use it on YouTube today. We're going to set that to measuring resistance. And it's got the little headphones. Do I put this on the back of the guitar?
Wherever you want.
Matter of fact, I'm not doing anything to protect the back of your guitar. Do we care today?
Really?
Okay. So it won't matter whether I have the volume knob all the way up or down. So we're going from the back of the pot to the left leg, and it's 467 is the value of the pot. So that's the bridge control. It's 467. Let's lift the resistor now and find out what that pot was before PRS tuned it to match David Grissom's specifications.
If you touch the size, does it make the noise like the operation did? No. I've already breathed too many fumes.
Okay, so we lifted the resistor to find out what the actual value is. And now we're going to measure from the back of the pot. Since the right leg is already grounded, we don't have to measure from the outside legs. So it started off life as a
500.
I mean,
pretty
they're
much.
just barely tuning it. So let's find out the value of that resistor that they tuned it with. It's a 10 meg, even though it's coming up as like 9.49. This is a 5% part, so you can do the math on that. That could have been anything from an 800 to a 1.2 meg. But it's settling around 9.6, so it's a 10 meg resistor that they're using to bring what was probably purchased as, I'm sure, as a 500K pot. 500K pot is what it originally was supposed to be, and this is what's within 10%. So this one was within 10%. It's come up as 490 instead of 500, which is probably purchased as. And they're putting a 10 meg resistor from the left leg to the back of the pot, and the back of the pot is also soldered to the right leg like it typically is on a volume pot. So it's the same thing as putting it across the two outside legs. So
Is that just on the neck pickup?
no. And we're going to see if that's a different value over there in a second, but we're going to work through this methodically and make sense of it.
So they have one of those on both.
So here's the question. And if you can either make the decision, we can make the decision together, or you can contact Porter and find out would they recommend that their pickup sees a 500K pot or a 400, and what was the value? Do you remember? 467. So that what happens there is it usually is going to knock a little bit of top end off. It's going to take just a tiny bit of snap off. So if the same thing exists on the neck pickup, remember how we saw the neck pickup sounded a little dark? It's possible that removing this resistor will give you back a little bit of that top end that you'd like to have. So these are the commonly known values for the partial split resistors. On the bridge, you have the 2.1K, which I think is a 2.2 actually, but it's coming up here at 2.17, so actually 2.2K, we'll call it that. And then on the neck pickup, it's a it's going to be like a 1K. It's coming up as 0.846 here, but it's a 1K resistor that they typically use. Maybe it's a 1.1. We'll find out when we get the pickup off of it, but I don't think that's even affecting it. So this should be the bridge pickup, so we can remove it on this side. So the bridge pickup should be free for us to actually remove from the guitar now. Let's flip this, get these wires tucked back in, so we flip it over, we're not damaging the back of the guitar. Let's use our professional screwdriver to remove this pickup. Which one of you gets the job of mounting the new pickup in the pickup ring and promises not to make the little springs fly across the room?
Apparently me.
I got a numb finger. I would do it.
That's what we're calling you from now on. Your numb finger. Pat is numb finger.
Probably cap and one finger. I'll feel more likely right now.
Let's see if this just lifts out. Its wires are free, so it should. So there we go. Or is it like this? Will this camera keep focusing? Is it autofocus or is it set up to?
It should. Is it focus?
I just don't know if it'll focus that close. Anyway, it's PTP 4159 SE DGT TNU. And it looks, kind of like most of the SE pickups that we see. Very chrome looking covers. Look how nice this is going to come out.
Yeah, I like the
Look at the
covers.
finish difference.
It looks like the
That's going to be very cool.
saddles on the bridge.
Does that say classic on the back of it?
It says classic. Oh, look at how nice the back looks on that too. It's
So
fantastic.
that's the bridge right there.
I like that little piece of like fiberboard or whatever they call that. It's cool. Look at the difference in the back of those. Which one would you like to
I guess
put your grubbing mitts on? Okay, so there goes the bridge pickup. DGT SE has a nice clean looking route. The paint is continuous. Everything's cool. There, nothing to complain about. No messages inside for us, so I'm disappointed.
This is a neck.
Do we leave messages for the next invader?
Good.
Okay, so we're on to removing the resistor. Actually, I'm not going to remove the resistor yet. I'm going to remove the hot from the pickup first. And we're still not protecting the back of the guitar. Folks at home, don't do what I'm doing. Put either a piece of paper, a piece of cardboard, or a rag on the back of the guitar in case solder gets flung. And we'll probably do that when we start burning solder, but for the moment, we're living a little dangerously.
Well, your attention to detail in that area is commensurate to your reimbursement.
Okay. I'm not feeling good about my reimbursement at this point. Not because of my
Exactly. So
Not 'cause of my level of work.
Guitar.
So the neck pickup measures from the back of the pot to the hot leg, which is the left leg, 246-ish. It's real close. So that one's lower, but I'm going to bet it's still, I can't see the color code from where I am. And I'm way too colorblind to read color codes. I just measure stuff. Come on, my buddy. It's okay to let go. There we go. Okay, so the value without the tuning pot on it, tuning resistor on it, it's 250. I mean, sorry, it's 500.
What does it say?
It's 516. So that one's
Cut it in half, basically.
no. No, so it's 500. It's a 500K pot that they ordered. That came in at 516. So that's a 16% tolerance part. The way well, no, it's not. I got that wrong because it's not 100. So this has also got what is supposed to be a 10 meg resistor on it, but the actual resistor measures. If I can get this thing to stay still long enough.
Sure.
It was like a 9.8, I think.
Probably no reason to change the screws, right? Just use the screws that were in here.
Give me a second on that. Okay. So we have a 9.8 meg resistor on the neck potentiometer.
Mm-hmm.
It's originally supposed to be a 10 meg, but again, tolerance, keeps that from being all the way where it should be. That's fine. That's completely expected. Same thing would happen with. It's the country of origin is not affecting that. There's simply a 5% resistor because it's 10. And the pot, it's a 20% pot. It says made in Korea. So the pots are made in Korea.
That's what the SE used to be.
There's an A on the back. I assume that's for audio taking. I have no idea whether that would
Well,
work.
maybe they still source some of the parts because weren't the original SEs made in Korea? Some of them?
Yeah, they were made in Korea, South Korea. And so the pot was ordered as a 500K pot, but what they got on this particular one was a 516. And it doesn't look like someone's measuring each pot and then putting the appropriate value resistor on it. It looks like they're just buying 500K pots and then they're putting a 10 meg resistor across it to try to get the value down to what it should be. And so I'll calculate that in a second. So their target is 476K. So if you got a perfect value of a 500K pot, and then put a perfect value 10 meg ohm resistor across it, you would get 476.190K. So it's coming pretty close to their target. They're within just a few K of the target.
So is that to try to standardize them so they all sound the same, you think? Or?
No, apparently, David doesn't like the sound of it all the way at 500K. He likes it a little bit more. A little bit more load. Okay.
So is there anything to... The one in your hand here is the neck, right? No.
The one that is left hand.
The one in my left hand is the neck because it's still got a ring on it. Okay. So it ends with BNC instead of ending with TNU. Which is weird. I kind of would have thought something with a B on it would be the bridge pickup. Right, so like if I just pick these up, I don't know whether I would have thought with TN.
I wonder if we should grab a Sharpie and write an N and a B on.
And now you want to change which pickup is on.
Yeah, I think. Huh. I mean, part of this is like, let's make it less
personalized,
less DGT, more.
Yeah.
More else. That's part of the reason for picking this one. And I think if we swap, I think Pat and I both would rather be able to grab that front have the wiring match 99% of every other guitar that's out there in the market.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it messes with your head when you switch from one guitar to that.
But I totally understand why he does it.
Oh yeah, because
he wants the bridge pickup to be the one because that's money.
Where he lives. Yeah.
Exactly. So
the same way I'd like to wire my Les Paul. Are
we taking the tuning resistors off? Did we decide? Did Porter get back to you with that?
I don't think he did.
Or did you make an executive decision on that?
I don't think he got back to us.
All right, well, then we'll have to make our own decision.
Yes,
we will forge ahead.
Man, I know I like 500K pots of humbuckers, so why would you?
Yeah, no, you always do what you do. So 22 microfarad, or 0.022, I'm sorry, is your tone cap. So it's funny, I've seen a lot of 0.03s in recent PRS guitars. So this one sticks to a 0.02, which I think is kind of traditional Gibson value. But it's not an oil cap. It's not an orange drop. It's not a bumblebee. I get the feeling you guys don't care.
No, I'm listening to what you're saying. Like, yeah, we didn't bring any of those.
Yeah. I mean, what's your recommendation?
Yeah.
You're talking on the treble beat.
If you only want to hear the pickups.
You're talking on the tone cap.
Tone cap.
Yeah.
So if you only want to hear the pickups, and Porter recommends an 02, I would assume, or maybe they don't have a recommendation. Nope. It's good that the screw fits the Porter pickup. So we reused the hardware, the spring and the screw from the DGT, and they fit the Porter pickup. So whatever's on the DGT isn't some different thread pattern. That's nice because sometimes it doesn't work out so great.
Right. Sometimes
you get a little different thread pattern or whatever.
Especially with imported guitars, right?
Oh, plate type. What is it?
Is that a scratch in the pickup already?
Or maybe they're meant to have a little bit of a. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think maybe that's it. I think these are fancy.
Guitars get red.
So your recommendations on the tone cap, your recommendations on taking that 10, those resistors off the.
Yeah, I think I would say take them off and hear the Porter pickups the way he probably thinks you're going to use them.
That's what I would think.
Because you're kind of moving this guitar from living in the very much David Grissom and PRS world into let's voice it for these Porter pickups. And the Porters are probably looking to see more of a traditional, values.
So I'm thinking, like, what do you have on your McCarty? You probably wouldn't have, like, for me, my baseline is always McCarty. Like, on your PRSs, like, I wouldn't think either one of us on their PRSs we're running would have that.
And these feel somewhat stiff. Do you want them to be loosened up? The tone is nice and smooth and fast. These two are a little slower. Depends on how much grip your skin generates against the speed knob.
It's never been.
If you like it with a little bit of resistance tuned in, that's fine. Me personally, I'd put a shot of deoxit in there, which would just loosen them up a little bit more.
It's never bothered me.
Okay, yeah, I like them real fast. It's totally personal as can be. It's just one of those kind of things.
I mean, I use them all the time. I use the volume knob all the time anyway. But it's never been an issue.
All
That
right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So both pickups, I think they're marked bridge and neck. Yes.
Okay, so currently the way it's set up, the bridge pickup goes to the most forward volume potentiometer. The neck pickup goes to the middle potentiometer. While the most forward potentiometer is wired to the right side of the pickup selector, and then the neck one, which is in the middle, goes to the left part of the toggle pickup selector. And we can't show the action of the switch, but it's happening. Let's talk about that. So if we put the neck pickup on the pot that used to have the bridge pickup,
It'd be upside down on the switch.
and you select the bridge, which this pot goes this switch kind of goes sideways. It's kind of weird. We're currently selecting this one. This is back here. Is on the bridge, but the bridge is coming from here. So I think we have to reverse these too.
Where do we just swap the pots?
I think it's easier to move the wires at the same value pot. You have to take the knobs off and everything.
For me, taking the knobs off is easier than soldering in the guitar cabinet. But for you, maybe not.
So it's set up now, though, that the toggle switch down is still the bridge, right?
Yeah, the toggle still
It's the
does
same. It's just that the volume output.
this.
Like you
This
said, it's not totally
what this is doing is selecting.
right. Yeah.
He's swapping wires, not the.
Yeah. I'm
That's
just saying
great.
that
So if you swap the wires,
But we need it to be here. When we come here, we need it to be here and then instead of here.
right.
I think I have this right. If I don't, please edit. My God. The pounding I'll take.
Is that camera still? Just peeking this way, so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's red, and it's
No, I mean, it's still on the frame, though.
Could probably. His hands are there. I mean, you can see the cavity.
Okay. There's a talent here because I mean, I would have to, if I attempted this, I'd have to pull all of that stuff out of the guitar.
Well, my talent is avoiding work, so that's what you're seeing. Superfluous work.
My friends call me blister, but that's what the work's done.
I get that. It'll take me a second. I'm adding a little bit of fresh solder before I connect this one. The other one soldered just fine, and the only reason I didn't add fresh solder was I was afraid I was going to mix the wires up. And I'm trying to work at a reasonable pace here. Give it a tug. Everything seems fine. Get this guy out of the way here as much as we can. Bring this guy over here and get him out of the way as much as we can. I'm going to push these black wires down, down, down. And that's where we have another problem to take a look at here, and that's the original jack is loose. So while we're in the ballpark, let's not forget if it looks like a decent jack, we'll keep it. If it's trash, we'll change it. So it's it doesn't look like what you commonly see.
Yeah, this is a little more substantial.
Yeah, so this is a Neutrik, which is very similar to the Switchcrafts. I've been using the Neutriks because they actually are a little bit tighter. This is not. It is not.
You know what I think is cool is how that thing that covers the tremolo back there.
Tremolo cover.
Yeah, if you look, it's like almost the size of a pellet.
What is that? Forget about it?
Forget about it.
You know what I mean? It's,
What do you think?
I just thought that
You think forget about it?
looked
Other
good.
bar
It's a good
pedals that would fit on top of
That is on the screen, right? Look on the camera. Is that,
I don't
is that
know.
showing up on the monitor there?
I can't see it.
It's
I mean, yeah, it's there.
It's
But
there.
it's so dark, I can't tell if that's
Well, I
really
think
the
we
one
should
you...
just keep going with all the Barber pedals. We see which one contrasts best.
Right.
See,
That's what I'm saying.
I go for that tool for stuff that we do on board.
The one that no one can get currently? Let's do that.
That's what we like to do. Show things people can't have.
Phew. It's my life. So there's a longer 4-conductor wire on the neck pickup. That's kind of a good idea. I like that. Although in some guitars it actually goes the other way, but I think in a lot of cases this would be the right one. I wonder if they do that on purpose or whether, you know.
I knew what was going in.
Yeah. And we've got insulation this time on the wire, like I suspected that we would. And we've got the ground or the shield is already connected, it looks like, to the, is this red?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Colorblind people in electronics.
So we're gonna put you on a bomb squad.
Yeah, oh man. I am not, I
Dave.
am not bomb squad material. And then we've got the white and green.
Mm-hmm.
Man, look at me. Go, go, go. So we're back to this again. Red, soldered to the bare wire, and then solder that to the ground, to the pot. So that's what we would expect. Red and the bare wire, which is ground, goes to the ground. The white one gets soldered to the green wire, and that can be used to split. Oh, I skipped over one. The black is soldered to the volume potentiometer or to selector switch. Okay, so this goes to the potentiometer. Okay, so we're going to need a little bit more exposed conductor to be able to make it over to the white and the green need to be able to go over to the split here. So while it might possibly fit on this guy, it won't on the other. And the forward position is the neck pickup, which is what we just ran through. So the next thing we have to do is strip that wire. Okay, so we need at least about 3 inches. We've got currently a lot less than that, probably 1.5. So do you want me to put a wire on the green and white, and then I'll use some
like jump it over so you don't have to cut so much
so
off.
Or do you want me to just cut this back far enough? I mean, the appropriate way to do it is to, I mean, if you look at the PRS one, they separated their split wire from their typical coax. We've got 4 conductor, which means it's all together. And I can either, take it back about that far. It just depends on what you think the future is of this particular pickup. If they're going to go on other guitars possibly or whatever.
I would think it's possible. I mean,
I know, it's fun to put them in different...
Or if we ever got rid of... Yeah, I mean, certainly think it's possible that maybe. I don't know.
So do you want me to attach a wire to this and shrink, put some shrink tubing there? Because there's plenty here now to actually connect it. The only thing I really need additional wire for is to make the split work. Black is hot, and I believe. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get out our multimeter again, and we're going to check to find out whether we were right, because we all make mistakes, but we don't all have to live with our mistakes. We'll go back and fix things because we made mistakes, because we check things. So our selector is set to bridge position pickup. Well, I've got this little George L cable plugged in, and the tip of it should now go to here. We get 0.05 for the amount of ohms, so it's less than an ohm resistance, which means yes. And now we'll set the pickup selector to the neck position. And we'll also still measure where the bridge is, and we get a meg. That sounds right. And if we check our neck pickup, we get 2.7 ohms of resistance. Okay, so we're good. We've got everything going in the correct direction. And now we've got to set up our pots so that we don't have resistors on them that we don't need. An exercise in removing the superfluous. Fuzz, pure fuzz. Pat's going to make his operation noise now. He's been dying to the whole time we've been working on this.
I think it knows like something.
And while we're in here, maybe we'll take a look and see what these looks like it's a 181. 181 picofarads is the treble bleed cap. So I remember earlier PRS guitars having larger values, and a lot of people use values closer to like as much as 680. Every once in a while you see a 0.001. So this is a higher frequency. I think that tends to be what PRS likes. I think it works pretty well. I think it sounds pretty natural on the way down. But it doesn't quite do the thing where as you turn it down, it feels like it's adding a little bit of highs. Whereas like a 0.0, like a 680 picofarad, I'm sorry, that tends to make it feel a little brighter as you turn it down. So do you like the idea of having it sound consistent as you turn it down, which is what you currently have, or do you like the idea of it maybe getting a little brighter as you turn it down? The volume pot.
I'm consistent, I think.
Let's do it. We're good. It's what's already there, so I'm loving your choice.
Okay, good. Would that be like, that would be more like the treble bleed in my old McCarty, right?
I think your old McCarty might actually bring a little bit of top end on the way down.
You think?
I mean, no, it doesn't.
Now I'm changing my mind.
I mean, no way. That's not how that works.
I did not mind this guitar rolling the volume back and forth.
Okay, I'm going to leave some this lead on here, but what I'm going to do is a little shrink tubing on there, I think. Either that or maybe fix through some of this Teflon tubing. I'll use this. So you still have, let's see if it fits through Teflon tubing first. So this is just to protect, so nothing shorts out. Let's see if this one makes it. It's going to make it just great. So I'll do that. I get it from interstate wire. It is a Teflon tubing. It can take a lot of heat. That's the reason I like using it for insulation.
So it is the John Gotti of Teflon. It's a lot of heat.
Did anyone bring a cymbal and a snare drum?
What difference?
Let's leave just about. Which?
And that's because you have that exposed.
Yeah,
wire
it's
on
just
there.
some extra, assurance that you're not going to get into a situation where you're. It's not very flexible, this stuff, but once we button it up, it shouldn't matter. I will add a little bit of new solder, which means it is time. Try to put a little bit of protection down on the back of the guitar. Put a little bit over here, and then we'll just be risky with this one section over here where we're working because it's going to be crazy to try to get that end on. And it's making everything dark. So got to get all of our PVC wires well out of the way. I'm using, this is a screwdriver tip. If you look at the shape of it on the side, I'm putting the flat side down so I'm getting as much mass as possible. And as I melt a little bit of new solder onto it, it'll help with improving the mass that I need to make that solder flow. It's flowing no problem. And that only looks moderately ugly. The black wire is hot. You pick up. And I'm going to try to figure out which way I want to enter. Yeah. Maybe this way. It's probably a hair longer than I need. I'm going to fight with this if I don't trim it down just a little bit. It's been pre-tinned, but I'm going to tin it a little bit more just so that all the solder is kind of the same. I'm using a lead-free solder. A little secret. Not that secret because they sell millions of feet of this. For sure. K100LD Kester, and I'm using 0.031 diameter, and it works great. It looks shiny when it's done, even though it's lead-free. And it even blends well with leaded solders if you already have them in your instrument. This does not, because PRS cares about the earth, and they care about the people that are assembling their guitars, and so they don't want them working with lead. That, and they won't be able to sell them in Europe if they don't do what I just did. Don't blow on solder joints, but I was getting a little tired of holding that one. So there's our hot. And there's our neck coil split right there, waiting to be attached. Now, we're going to stick with our original values that the PRS had. For the neck, I don't care as much. For the bridge, I would open it up a little bit. I think on the bridge, if you, so far I don't need this, by the way. I think on the bridge pickup, I think when you go with a lot of these coil splits, if you're not blending them with a single coil pickup, so like a hum single strat, if you use kind of a lower value, and when you're in the number 2 position of the blade switch, then you get kind of a thinner sounding bridge pickup from the humbucker because it's split, but you're using the partial split in order to give it a little bit more oomph to it. It sounds pretty good, but when you're using it by itself, the way this is used sometimes, I think they can sound really thin. And so even with the position that they chose, I think it can still sound too plasticky and thin, whereas if you use a little bit larger value, I think it starts to sound a little bit more like something between like a Strat and a P90 kind of sound. And I think it just has a little bit, you end up with a humbucker that has a tighter bottom and a little bit more snarl to it, like a P90 would give you. It's quieter than a P90. So I think that's kind of a no-lose way to do it. But I guess I would keep the neck probably similar to what we already did, because I think you like to have a lot of clarity in your neck pick if I'm thinking about what you tend to want from it.
So you want to pull the...
I'll leave this one, but I'm going to change the resistor on the bridge. Is that cool?
In this, where are you is this on the tone? Where are you changing? Which resistor are you changing?
The tone pot.
Oh, you're talking about...
Which is right here where my finger is. And we're affecting the exposure by doing this easy yellow things. Yeah, so next time I do this, we'll use black throw cloths. So right here is the tone pot, which also is push-pull. And it's got 2 resistors on it. And it's set up so there's basically 2 switches. So it's a double pull, double throw switch. On the bottom side of it over here, you've got the one that corresponds to the bridge, as long as you put the bridge wire on there. And the neck one is on this side, on the top. So over here, you probably can't see it.
So you want to leave...
I want to change the one on the bridge, but I'll leave the neck one because I think that you probably want that to be able to be thinned down as much as possible when you need clarity.
Sure.
If you don't like it, we'll change it later on. Of course, the connection is on the bottom. It's the hardest place to get to. Most difficult. We're going to add a little bit of new solder. We're going to add a little bit of solder that we're using, even though this is pre-tinned. We're not going to bother threading it because this is such a light gauge wire that it's going to hold just fine. Gently cool. Okay, so the neck pickup's already in. And now all I gotta do is install the bridge. This is, if you see it's got the LP, that's for Les Paul wiring, so you shouldn't be using this. All week, we're gonna be here all week.
It's already Friday, so there's only a few more days this week.
The pain will end sooner or later.
It comes back next week. So.
Before we flip the guitar over, we clear our workspace again. And now we're going to, and the only reason I didn't put both pickups in at the same time was because you don't have to ask yourself the question, which wire am I working with here?
That makes sense. When I did the Harley Benton, I didn't put both in at the same time either.
Yeah. I think sometimes people think they're going to save time that way, but if you end up asking yourself which wire is coming from which pickup too much, especially if you make a mistake, there goes your time.
I only put one in at a time. I do it.
You didn't change the toggle switch or anything?
Yeah. I didn't change any of the values in the toggle switch either.
Let's figure out. There we go. Well, that was nice of that wire to pop out the other side like that. Made life easy.
So you get an nasty call from Paul about changing?
I don't think so. I think Paul wants people to play their guitars and have fun with them. I think the reason why guitar manufacturers, especially electric guitar manufacturers, made things screw into place and bolt into place is so that people could change them. And so I think he would think it would be cool if we liked the selections that they made initially. But if we like them and then find something you like better or just experiment with something else, he's experimenting all day long.
That's true.
So
yeah, that was my only thing is like, we're going to take a guitar that's an artist model and then change it, but probably play it a lot. It's like, well, this is DGT, but it's 4 pickups and we change the wiring.
Well, and an artist's guitar is set up for that artist, and for a certain amount of time, it's fun to kind of like live in the boots of the artist. But is it how you want to live after you've lived in the boots? I mean, there's a lot of artists who I don't want to walk in their shoes. They get great things out of the guitar the way they play them. When I sent Eric Johnson a lot of guitar pedals one time, and most of them he sent back. I think he kept one as a tone press. But he tried all the overdrive pedals, and he wrote back a really nice note that he liked them all. But every one of them had the tone knob turned all the way down. I don't have any customers who play any of my pedals with the tone knob turned all the way down. If anything, people say about my pedals is they would maybe want a little bit more top. But he had them all the way down. And I know it's very common for him to have his bridge pickup tone knob down. So he really knocks off all of the harmonics that come from the guitar very early on, and wants to keep them at that level. And most guitar players don't play that way. So those are hard boots to walk in unless you're trying to be an Eric Johnson clone. And I think that's why it's so tough for people to sometimes do the Eric Johnson trip. So this wire is plenty long. Peeling back our insulation.
How much different is the 5-watt bus from the burn unit?
From the burn unit, so the toggle switching is completely different. So that's an important thing, since that sets up how the pedal works. So the burn unit is meant to sound a little bit more, have a little bit more of an air around the top of it, where there's a little bit more of, not quite as fat in the low mids, I guess is the easy way to say it. As the low mids get kind of fatter, you don't tend to hear the top as much. So it has a little bit less of that. But I balanced it differently on the 5-watt world. On the 5-watt world bus, you got a burn unit sound on that. And I really pumped up the low mids to make it very Dumble-like. Because I always felt like what Dumble did that was kind of one of his most interesting aspects of the sound was he made overdrive take up the kind of space that you typically think of as fuzz taking up. So think of fuzz face. A fuzz face every note is enormous, but you can't play big fat chords on it because the notes are all so enormous. If you play a dominant 7 chord or something like that, it can kind of handle it as long as you turn your volume knob down on your guitar and you get that kind of cleaner sound from it. When it's all the way up, it's really rough. And so he made overdrives that could do that. And consequently, they only tend to work up to around dominant 7. But I did that on the burn unit setting on the bus, but then I compensated for those extra low mids by putting a lot of harmonics available on the other toggle switch that switches between harmonics and dynamics. And so there's a high harmonic sound that works really, really well with it. It's less gain than the burn unit, so it can be a little bit more dynamic. And then it's got the direct drive setting on it. And the direct drive setting is a lot like the era of direct drives that you like on that. And that's what's different about it in comparison to the blue bus that we make. The blue bus that we make is very much like a SS, which is why it's burn unit and SS for the Super Sport. Where this really could have been, the 5-watt whirlwind could have more accurately been a BUDD direct drive. But it's also like a medium game Super Sport 2 that's dialed in a little bit differently. So we stuck.
So it's more like a version 1 direct drive, I think?
It's closer to a version 1 direct drive. Yeah.
Oh.
So and the main thing that you hear with that is when you play guitars that you want to hear the string a lot, like single coil pickups. It really lets that speak. It doesn't cover it up too much. Whereas an SS sound covers that a little bit. It still sounds like a single coil, but you hear that extra kind of stuff with it, where it's a lot sweeter with that one. And it also helps with, in the case what Keith wanted me to try to target was as much of that JTM 45, which is similar to a Bassman too, kind of sound.
It's super funny because I had version 4 on my pedal board over church for a little while, and I know dialed in kind of the settings. So you're like, oh, put the toggle switches here for version 1. Dialed in that way, I think sound better than my version 1.
Oh wow!
For sure.
You like the V4 now better than the original one you came to me and got back in Amsterdam.
I think when I had it dialed in over in the live rig, it sounded better than the version 1.
Wow.
I still probably use it. Well, we keep the version 4 at the house as we try to use that on the show. And then sometimes when we're doing a video, I still grab the version 1 because I know how to set the version 1 to a sound I like immediately.
Yeah.
You don't even have to have the amp plugged in. Like I know if I put these knobs here, it's gonna sound the way I like it. So I still struggle, but I know the version. I would say the version 4 sounds better. Like if I was starting over and could only have one, I would go to the version 4 and figure it out.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that because when I make the new versions, I'm trying not to lose the guys that like them in the past, or lose things that people just liked in the past. Okay, so we're going to use a 4.7K resistor on the bridge pickup for the coil split, which they call partial splits. I'll tin the resistor a little bit. It just means it gets a little bit of solder on it. Not enough to make me burn my hand, hopefully. And we tack it back to where the original part was. That's where the original part was. We cut down our lead a little bit, so it'll go through. And now, I hope everybody at home knows what that thing is. It's a vacuum pump, a desoldering tool. And so we'll get the solder off of the old part. Boom. So heat it, and then a little bit of vacuum. We're good. That gives us a clean place to put the resistor lead.
So the partial splits are more like 60-40 or not just...
Not even really that. You're using a little bit, instead of completely disconnecting one of the coils, you're able to use just a little bit from that coil in order to give you a little bit more output and a little bit more fullness. The downside is that coil is loaded in a way that doesn't sound particularly good. It's not too far off of putting in, like in the case of the original part, having a 2.2K pot across one of your pickups, which is, everybody's worried about having 500K in a single coil, which is what it is, 250K usually. But so that's the one downside of it. Why it can sound a little lifeless when you add it is that you've got this one coil that's loaded a little strange and it's got resistance across it. And so I don't go quite as small on that value. I try to let the pickup, if you let it breathe a little bit more, I hate to use that word breathe. Somebody will be like, he thinks pickups breathe. I'm just going to add a little bit more back in. And when I just clean that, I'm going to tack it on. That's from the angle I'm coming in, that's what it's going to take. I'm going to twist those wires back together again because they were not twisted. But first, before I grab them, I'll pull them the heck down. And that's semi-twisted now. And we're going to tin them. That's nice and solid. Let's see what happens when we put, first of all, let's clear our workspace a little bit. Let's get all sharp objects out of the way. that sharp. Okay. Let's put our jack in it again. And we gotta do something about. Now let's make sure our knobs are all the way up. Okay, we've got our knobs all the way up. We've got our guitar on the workbench. Set to measure resistance or impedance. How do you want to think of that today? 7.4, that should be the neck pickup. And it is.
Output 7.4.
2 pickups to go should be around 4, 3.96. That tells me the bridge pickup's probably going to work. And probably going to be around 8 something, right? 8.5, 8.49. What did it say that pickup?
8.5.
Okay. So all those measured correctly. Now let's pull our push-pull out. And we should get roughly half. A little bit more because of that. So 6.5 on the bridge now, because we used this 4.7K. Neck pickup will be closer to half. I don't like that value, that resistance we're seeing there at all. Now put this securely together, and it looks like it's right, but well, the good news, oh, there it is. So that measured correctly. I don't know why, oh, because the pickup selector I think was in the middle. Which means we'll probably get something like a 2 or 1.9, yeah, 3, okay. So with this guitar, if we do make any mistakes, we have the great fortune that once the strings are on it, we still can get to the electronics inside.
Right.
It's not a Strat, folks. So before I button it up,
Yeah, we won't put the strings on it before.
no, I'm going to put at least a couple screws in and keep the back on because there's screws in the back. I don't want to risk having anything happen to those that's untoward.
I had the order strings today.
We still got.
Huh?
We still have 2 hours to get strings on this guitar and hear it.
That's almost enough. I think all my PRSs except for one, I got Paul to sign them. I have them on the inside though.
So do you want to sign this?
Yeah, I want to sign.
I mean,
the fee would be the same.
It'll still be the sign.
Yeah.
Still be signed, yeah. Okay, so the pickup heights up. Who's putting the strings on this thing?
Well, if you made it this far, we feel compelled to answer the question of who changed the strings. It wasn't me. It was the same guy who changed the pickup rings out. Mr. Numbfinger here brought an excuse from his parents that he couldn't participate.
Yes, he did. So with that, hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed being in the room with David Barber. When you get a chance to be around that type of expertise, it's really amazing. And we're happy we were able to share that with you. So I think with that,
I'm PJ on behalf of the Beard, reminding you no matter what you hear, you never have too much gear.